Our video will be looking at the biomechanics of the running gait pattern. We have 7 runners and we will be discussing their different biomechanics in the sagittal plane. Every runner has some similarities, but since there's so much that goes into the running, we're all different.
Strength and conditioning coach Miles Gemberlin on why people run differently and explains what goes into the running gait pattern.
Why you run differently.
Yeah, people with similar body types.
With a basic answer,
Yeah.
your relative strength is all different. There you go.
Okay.
That'll create different running.
Okay, can you explain why relative strength?
Why will relative strength be different? Because let's say you all are the exact same strength, but yet you all weigh different weights. You're all going to run differently because the force you're going to produce is going to be different.
So would our center of mass be different then too?
That's a different deal. I mean, you're talking about, now we got to measure where your center of mass is, and that's going to take into a lot more factors than just height.
So it's similar body types have different central
Yes.
masses. Okay.
Yes.
What determines that?
Your central mass? Well, I mean, a lot of things. Maybe somebody's upper body from torso up, their percentage of mass is greater than their lower body. They're going to run differently than somebody whose mass is in their lower body. I mean, there's so many factors. You want me to go?
I'm good, yeah. Just go.
Genetics, huge key factor. So muscle types, type 1, type 2A, type 2B muscle fibers. Limb length is going to be one. Strength is the biggest one. Total body strength, biggest factor.
Could you explain that though?
No. Stride length?
No, like why?
Stride frequency and stride length?
Yeah.
The 2 factors that determine speed. Stride length, the distance with which, how far you go between each stride. And then frequency, how fast your legs are churning. Both can be improved by strength. So increasing strength, your stride rate gets faster and your length gets faster, gets further. Does that make sense? What, walking gait?
Yeah.
Talking about how you all have different walking gaits and how it's
Yeah.
easy to identify who is walking just by their gait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to identify.
Why though?
Why is it easy to identify? Because I'm around you guys way too much.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
Strength and conditioning coach Miles Gemberlin gave us a list of factors that go into running. It includes thigh circumference, hip flexion, which is how far the leg goes up, extension of the knee when it strides out or is bent, leg stride, frequency, heel strike or toe strike, shoe size, history of injury, flexibility, hands in relation to the body, insertion of muscles, which we were not able to measure, genetics, and upper body, where you lean and if you're upright, and the most important thing is relative strength to the whole body. Charlie Francis describes the sagittal plane for runners as wanting the runner's center of gravity to stay positive. Looking at it through the sagittal plane, the hip wants to stay positive through the flight phase.
Our first runner is Kayla Pressgrave. Her height is about 71 inches and her shoe size in female is 9.5. Her thigh circumference is 20 inches and she only has one injury to her left foot. Her flexibility is about moderate and her ethnicity is Caucasian, and her lower body to upper body ratio is lower body is 40 inches and her upper body is 31 inches.
Watching Kayla Pressgrave run, you can tell that her hip flexion is at a negative in the sagittal plane. Her extension of her knee is extended straight and it pushes it off the toe to allow her to get a long leg stride of 2.1 yards. Her frequency is average because the strike does not come as fast as you would think it should. The heel strike is at the ball of her foot and it does not reach the toe until she's about to push off. Her hands are open and her elbows are flexed at exactly 95 degrees. Her center of mass is very bouncy, as you can tell in the very background that she bounces up and down while she's running to get her stride length. The knee flexion does not flex at 90 degrees due to the poor hip flexion. The upper body is leaning over at a slight approximate 20 degrees.
Our next runner is Hadley. She is 64 inches and her thigh circumference is 19.5 inches. Her upper to lower body ratio is 34 inches on the lower body and 30 inches in the upper body. Her only injuries is a bruised meniscus and her flexibility is moderate.
Hadley has a negative knee flexion, and the extension of her knee is behind her body. Her leg stride is small at only 1.2 yards approximately, but her frequency is very high. Her hands are closed, arms are bent at about 80 degrees, and her center of mass does not have much bounce to it, so it kind of glides across the ground. Her knee flexion is at 90, but does not go in line with the hip. Her upper body is leaning back, and when she hits the ground, she strikes with the ball of her foot, but then ends up pushing on her toe.
Kayla Watanabe is 65 inches. Her shoe size in a woman's is a 9. Her thigh circumference is 21.5 inches, and she has injuries to her left ACL and left ankle. Her flexibility is low. Her lower body versus upper body ratio is her upper body is 31 inches and her lower body is 34 inches. Kayla, while running, never really has her feet touch the ground, which could lead to her high frequency. Her stride length is about 1 yard. The hip flexion does not drive the knee up, and her extension of the knee is close to being under her body. Her hands are extremely close and swing across her face while her shoulders are tense and her head is slightly forward. On the right leg, the flexion allows the heel to hit the glute completely, while the brace on the left leg restricts her range. This could lead now to slower speed as the rotation is not full.
Bridget Daley is 5'5" and has a shoe size of 9. Her thigh circumference is 23 inches. She has no previous injuries and has low flexibility. Her torso to lower body ratio is 30 inches for her upper and 35 inches for her lower. Watching Bridget Daley run, the extension of her knee is under her body, and she has a leg stride of 2 yards with a high to moderate frequency. She lands flat-footed and uses her whole foot to push off. Her arms swing across her body. The knee flexes at 98 degrees and does not come up past the hip. She runs upright with her chest forward. There is little bounce in her center of mass. Kayleigh has a height of 5'10", a shoe size of 8.5, a thigh circumference of 25 inches, and she has had injuries to both ankles, a history of calf cramping, and a pulled quad. She has moderate flexibility, and her lower body to torso ratio is 39 inches lower body and 31 inches upper body. Watching Kayleigh run, you can see her hip flexion brings her thigh parallel. Her knee extension allows the knee to cycle back quickly. Her leg stride is 2.5 yards with a high frequency. She strikes with her toe first, then gradually goes to her heel. Her hands are closed and close to her body. Her arms come close to her face. The knee flexion is approximately 85 degrees. Her upper body leans over her head a little forward, and her center of mass moves up and down. The shoulders are tense, and the knee points down at full flexion.
AR has a height of 71 inches and has a shoe size that is 11 in women's. Her thigh circumference is 24.5 inches, and she has injuries to her meniscus in her left knee, her IT band, and poor hips. Flexibility is high, and her lower body is 38 inches and her upper body is 33 inches. Her weak hips could lead to poor hip flexion that now the thigh does not come parallel. Extension of the knee is right under the body. Her leg stride is 2 yards and the frequency is moderate due to slow extension to flexion of the legs. Her hands are closed, but the elbow flexes at 90 degrees. The knee flexion looks to be about 70 degrees. Her upper body is upright, but with a curve in the back. Her foot hits the ground completely, which could lead to slower frequencies.
Frederick is 5'11". Her shoe size is 9.5. Her thigh is 23 1/4 inches around. She suffers from a previous ACL injury on her right leg, a hyperextension on her left knee. Her flexibility is the highest of all of the subjects, and her lower body measurement is 37.5 inches, and her upper body measurement is 33.5. Watching Kayleigh Frederick run, her hip flexion allows her knees to come up almost parallel to her body. Her leg stride is approximately 2.2 yards, with a high to moderate frequency. She strikes heel to toe. She keeps her hands in fists, arms swinging across the body, and they never reach 90 degrees. Her knee flexion does not reach 90 either, which helps with her long stride. Her upper body leans forward a lot, and her center of mass bounces a lot as she runs in a glide.
The running gait pattern can also help with preventing injury or treating injuries. As stated in a study done by Dr. Dugan at the Rush Medical Center, the foot is an extremely important part to look at during the running gait pattern, as it has multiple functionings with running, as it helps with uneven ground. The foot is also used for proper positioning and balance, and leverage for the propulsion, and improper alignment could also lead to injuries, as the foot could be misplaced, and that could cause injury to the lumbar spine as overcompensating in the back.